Hello, fellow creators. Sometimes we ask, who are we? It's an interesting question, but more so than a question, more so than any inquiry we can do, who are we when we're stressed, when we're feeling the pressure of life, when we think everything's coming down on us? What do we become? And on the other hand, what do we become when we get over those stress, when we get over those emotions that make us feel bad, we get over those thoughts that make us feel bad? Who are we then? Well, here's Dr. Joe Dispenza to break down all of that in this video.
That's who we really are. The moment you put your awareness on that consciousness, on that space, so when people begin to put their awareness and open or cause a divergent focus instead of a convergent focus, that opening of attention, what people don't realize is this is who you really are, right?
Yes.
So this field around your body is who you really are. When you're functioning by the hormones of stress, you're more particle and less energy. You're more matter and less wave. That's the function of what those hormones do. We become materialists, right? And we define reality with our senses. So energy contracts. So then when you begin to put your awareness on the space around your body in space, that field around your body is consciousness. That's who we really are. The moment you put your awareness on that consciousness, on that space, something amazing happens. The brain starts getting very orderly, and you're no longer using the brain to try to change the brain. You're no longer using the ego to try to change the brain, or the ego, or you're not using the program to try to change the program. You're using consciousness to change the program, the brain, and the ego, because this is you. And so some people would say, well, that's not me, I can't feel that. And I'd say, well, you don't feel your nose unless you put your awareness on it. You don't feel your little toe unless you become aware of it, right? So if you don't put your awareness on this field, wherever you put your attention or wherever you put your awareness is where energy follows. Energy follows awareness. So the moment you start putting your awareness and your attention on this sphere around you, now you're beginning to introduce yourself to who you are. You're starting to get acquainted with the true self. And when we study that on the scans, we saw the brain all of a sudden having dominion over the program, having ability to change the brain. So the moment you're no longer analyzing, your brain waves move from, of course, beta to alpha. Now, when you're functioning by the hormones of stress, you believe that the outer world is more real than the inner world. That's the seduction. In other words, when the brain is in a high arousal state, we're functioning and determining reality with our senses. So because we're functioning by our senses, we're focusing on the particle of the atom instead of the wave possibility, right? So then everything collapses into the known. So when you shift your awareness to the space around you in space, it means you can't think. And when you sense the space around you, you're not thinking, you're sensing. And what happens is the thinking neocortex tends to slow down and the brain waves tend to get slower. You start producing what's called alpha brain waves. And in alpha, alpha is the imaginary world. It's where the inner world starts becoming more real than the outer world. And the way we learn is we learn information and then we're in beta, we're in low levels of beta. We're in beta right now, we're relaxed. If I said to you, hey, listen, you can't eat lunch unless you take a test that I have, it's 75 questions, and then we can eat lunch.
That takes you into high beta.
You would go into mid beta. You'd be like, I better perk up and listen to what he says. But if you're freaked out, neurotic, emotional, insecure, frustrated, guilty, judgmental, you're going into high range beta. And now, no new information can enter into the nervous system that isn't equal to the emotion. In other words, the brain never has a chance to consolidate knowledge because it's not a time to learn. It's a time to run. So if there's a tiger around the corner, it's time for emergency, right? So then when we begin to teach people how to break that addiction and slow the body back down again, and their brain is moving from beta down the steps and they're going inward, that alpha pattern then is when you consolidate new circuits in your brain. So like I know when I'm lecturing that people are getting information because I'll develop a concept or an idea, and as I develop the concept or an idea, they'll go from the outer world listening to me to the inner world of actually consolidating the knowledge. They'll pause and the brain will move into alpha. When it happens, the brain stores it in its circuitry. So when we learn, we move into alpha. So if you're in high beta, you never, ever get any new information in there. So in alpha, the imaginary world, the inner world becomes more real. And what we noticed on our scans is that the beta patterns tend to slow down, and we start to get these really broad, healthy alpha patterns. And the person now is creating coherent, orderly, rhythmic patterns, and different compartments of the brain are shaking hands. Different areas of the brain, the left side's talking to the right side, the front is talking to the back. All of a sudden we're getting this psychic union going on, and different neighborhoods are saying, she's out of the way. I mean, every time I leave my body, the first thing my body always says is, thank God he's out of the way. And I see my body laughing while I'm standing there because it's relieved that the operators had a chance to heal, you know? So that's exactly what happens, is that the moment that we're out of the way, the moment we're not our body, the no longer we're not our identity, the no longer we're not the environment or putting our awareness on the external world, the brain tends to get more orderly and coherent. And different compartments of the brain begin to say, he's selfless, he's not a self any longer, and so there's a coherence and orderliness, and we start getting this synchronization that takes place in the brain. And what syncs together links together. And when you're stressed and insecure and emotional, that fragmented personality keeps a person powerless, because it's like having a multiple personality disorder, but experiencing all the personalities at the same time. We've all been there. Meditation allows that kind of orderliness. And when the front starts talking to the back and the sides start talking to the side, you start feeling more like yourself than you felt in a long time. And all of a sudden, all the things that you were stressing about no longer have any value any longer, because you've taken your attention off them, and the body settles down. Now, that coherent and orderly signal from the brain sends a very coherent and orderly message down the central nervous system, which controls and coordinates all other systems. And all of a sudden, the immune system says, wow, that's a great rhythm. All of a sudden, there's a group of guys playing really great drums, and the orchestra, the symphony now is playing in unison, and the cells are getting a very organized symphonic message. And so the immune system starts making some really healthy white blood cells. The digestive system starts working its timing better, and all of a sudden the heart is starting in harmonics with the brain, and you start experiencing well-being. And so the moment you start experiencing well-being, you go from tissue breakdown, catabolism, degeneration, into a state of regeneration, anabolism, tissue repair. Even the brain cells start growing. Everything starts growing. Cortical thickness starts to happen. Cortisol levels drop. Stress genes are dysregulated and down. They're shut off. They're dampered down. And all of a sudden, the body starts expressing a greater level of health. And now all of a sudden, you go from particle to wave. And the energy starts to move into the heart. And all of a sudden, we start seeing the chakra centers lining up, and the person all of a sudden now starts having energy from the body as the mind, because that's where all of it's stored. The body's freed from the chains of the past. And the moment that happens, the side effect is called joy, and that energy starts moving from the hormonal centers. In other words, if you're no longer a sexual identity, you're no longer digesting food, and you're no longer stressing and feeling out of balance, all those energy centers all of a sudden, that energy has to go somewhere. So it starts to move into the heart. You start to fall in love in the moment. You want the moment to last. Your body is feeling enriched, and all of a sudden the heart starts to open, and the energy starts moving back to the brain, and it's moving out of the body, and you're generating a bigger field, and all of a sudden you'll be able to focus on possibility, because you're taking your attention off the particle, and now you're focusing on the 99% of possibility that the atom is made of, and you're beginning to select new ideas, new paradigms, new creative states. And so the forebrain starts to work in constructing new archetypes and new patterns, and you see the person moving into a creative state, and all of a sudden they're a different state of expression in their brain. That's when you rewrite the program. That lady we showed having ecstasy and taking meditation in a state of ecstasy in their meditation, she was in high gamma. We were watching her. I was watching her go. We were watching her going alpha, alpha, theta, theta, theta. We looked at each other and we were like, oh no, Jeffrey and I, and all of a sudden, boom, here it comes, gamma, off the page. That's energy. And the sympathetic nervous system now is in complete balance with the parasympathetic nervous system. The thalamic gate is open. The subconscious is out of the way. It's released. And the energy is now traveling to the thinking brain, and the person's becoming super aware. You just took the dimmer switch and went from 20 watts to 50 watts,
yes.
which is normal, to 100 watts.
Right.
And we saw that in all the redness in the brain. Her brain was full of energy, and she was in a state of catharsis. She could control that, but why would she want to? Now she's having an orgasm in her head. Mm-hmm. Her brain is having the orgasm, and it's not chemical. It's electromagnetic. It's electromagnetic. Now, here's what happens. The moment that happens, melatonin has to change. Now it starts turning into all of these amazing neurotransmitters. Melatonin is transmuted in the alchemical factory of the pineal gland, and it makes a chemical that is one of the strongest antioxidants known to man. In other words, just a little tweak on the melatonin molecule, and now you have an anti-aging, anti-cancer, anti-heart disease, antimicrobial, anti-neurodegenerative disease chemical that's floating through your bloodstream.
Welcome back, fellow creators. So I hope that gave you into insights on who you truly are and who you truly can become. And what I really want to emphasize is when you're in stress mode, when you're freaking out, when you're just losing it, you're in beta mode, and it's hard to, or just about impossible to receive new information in beta mode because you're in fight or flight. You're trying to think, you're stressed out, you don't know what's going on. But when you kick into alpha mode or theta mode and you slow your brain down, you start to become more energy than matter. And what that does is allow you to take new information and, more importantly, new possibilities. And with that, you can allow your brain to relax. You can allow your brain to absorb new information, to learn new things. And ultimately, with those new things you learn, you can take them and expand upon the possibilities of life. And when you're in alpha and theta, it also makes it easier to create those new possibilities. While you're meditating and using your imagination, take everything that you've learned, whatever skill you've learned, and then allow yourself to see the possibilities with that. Allow yourself to expand upon your power in the alpha state and create a new reality where you are the one who is creating and not the other way around, where you're the one influencing your environment. What program do you want to create? Create it in the alpha or theta state. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell, like this video, and leave me a comment below. All the best. Take care.